always been a night owl. There was something about the solitude of the darkened world, the faint hum of the engine, and the distant glow of my headlights slicing through the inky abyss that I found oddly comforting. But that was before the night that would forever change my perspective on driving at night. It had been an exhausting day at work, and I was desperate to get home and crawl into bed. The clock on my dashboard read 2:33 a.m. as I merged onto the desolate highway. A light drizzle tapped against my windshield, and the only sounds were the rhythmic whir of tires on wet pavement and the occasional thump of raindrops. My eyelids felt heavy, and the world outside blurred as fatigue took hold. Suddenly, I was jolted awake by the blaring horn of a passing semi-truck. I had drifted into the adjacent lane, inches away from disaster. My heart raced as I corrected my course, cursing my exhaustion. I needed a break, a shot of caffeine, something to keep me alert. I spotted a dimly lit rest stop sign up ahead and decided it was my best option. It was one of those places you'd find in the middle of nowhere, a cluster of vending machines and picnic tables nestled beneath a flickering street lamp. As I pulled in, I realized I was the only one there. I parked near the restrooms and shut off the engine. Raindrops continued their melancholic dance on the roof of my car, and the silence that enveloped the place was unnerving. I grabbed my wallet and stepped out, shivering as the cold air embraced me. My sneakers squished against the damp pavement as I made my way to the vending machines. I inserted a few crumpled dollar bills and selected a coffee that promised a jolt of energy. The machine whirred and clanked, delivering a steaming cup of black liquid. It was the only thing that separated me from complete exhaustion. I took a cautious sip, wincing at the bitterness, and then, with coffee in hand, I turned toward my car. That's when I saw her, a woman standing in the shadows near the restrooms. She was dressed in a tattered white gown, drenched in rain, and her long black hair hung in wet strands around her face. I froze in my tracks, my heart pounding like a drum. "Hey, are you okay?" I called out, my voice trembling. She didn't respond. Instead, she raised a bony finger and pointed toward the highway. It was then that I noticed the mournful wail of sirens in the distance. "Is there an accident on the highway?" I asked, taking a hesitant step closer. Still, she remained silent, but her finger shook, urging me to leave. I backed away, unnerved by her eerie presence, and climbed into my car. I started the engine, casting one last glance at the mysterious woman. She was still pointing, her gaze locked onto the highway. I merged back onto the darkened road, my hands gripping the steering wheel with white-knuckled intensity. The wailing sirens grew louder, and as I rounded a bend, I came upon a horrific sight. A mangled wreck lay sprawled across the highway, the remnants of a car that had collided with a semi-truck. Debris was scattered everywhere, and the flashing lights of emergency vehicles painted the scene in hues of red and blue. I slammed on the brakes, my heart pounding in my chest. It was the same semi-truck that had nearly collided with me earlier. As I watched in shock, paramedics and police officers rushed around, attempting to extract someone from the wreckage. A shiver ran down my spine as I realized that if I hadn't stopped at that rest stop and encountered the mysterious woman, I could have been the one in that accident. Tears welled up in my eyes as I thought of the people involved, their lives forever altered by a moment of inattention. I said a silent prayer for their safety and drove on, my mind haunted by the narrow escape. The rest of the journey was a blur, the coffee doing little to alleviate my exhaustion. The rain had intensified, turning the highway into a glistening ribbon of darkness. I tried to put the accident out of my mind, focusing on the road ahead, but something felt off. It was as though the night itself had taken on a malevolent presence. I glanced at the clock on the dashboard. It was nearly 4 a.m. My eyelids drooped, and I struggled to stay awake. Just when I thought I couldn't keep my eyes open any longer, I saw her again. The woman in the white gown, standing on the side of the road, her long hair obscuring her face. My heart raced, and I swerved to avoid hitting her. But as my headlights washed over her, I realized something was horribly wrong. Her face was a grotesque mask of decay, with hollow eye sockets and a gaping maw filled with rotting teeth. She raised her arms toward me, her bony fingers stretching out like claws. I slammed on the brakes, my car skidding to a stop on the rain-slicked pavement. I watched in horror as the woman approached, her gait unnatural and disjointed. She tapped on my window with one gnarled finger, her dead eyes fixed on mine. With trembling hands, I rolled down the window just a crack, suffocating in the stench of death that enveloped her. "Help me," she whispered, her voice a ghastly, guttural sound. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. All I could do was stare into those empty eye sockets, paralyzed with fear. And then in an instant, she was gone. The rain pounded against the empty highway, and I was alone once more. My heart raced, and I realized that whatever I had just encountered was not of this world. I peeled away from the spot, leaving the haunting highway behind me. The rest of the drive was a blur, and when I finally arrived home, I locked myself in my apartment, vowing never